Hello everyone, this is Karen and thank you for joining me for this Glycerin Experiment video. So one of the first brands that I reviewed on this channel was the Royal & Langnickel 18 tubes set, which is this one. And in the review, one of the things I noticed was the fact that they did dry quite quickly, and they cracked a lot and detached from the actual palette. So a lot of people, and when I say a lot, I mean like everyone, told me to add glycerin. Glycerin is going to solve your problem. Magic glycerin. I mean, it's like it's, I don't know, tears from a goddess or something like that. So what I did during my holiday period of sorts was I purchased a bottle because, you know, I heard so much about it that, you know, I want to try it. I was also very curious about honey, but I don't really like honey to eat, so to have a big jar of it, use a little bit for watercolors and then having it go to waste, it doesn't sit well with me. So it's not like this one is going to be used in full, but I don't know, maybe I can find some other use, like I don't know, make a soap or something like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this experiment is pick a color I don't mind using some of, so it's probably going to be a green, and fill two pans. One of them is not going to have any glycerin in it, and one of them is going to have glycerin in it. Then I'm going to do 3 or 4 test swatch, one directly after pouring the paint in the pan. The second one after a 24-hour period, the third one after a 48-hour period, and then the fourth one I'm probably going to wait, I don't know, a week or 10 days or something like that. And I'm going to swatch them side by side, and I'm going to wet them same as I would any other watercolor. So the conditions will be the same, and I will examine the swatches and see if the glycerin did anything to the paint other than make it, you know, more moist, less dry. Okay, so let's pick a color and then pour and mix and pour and mix, and let's see what happens then. Okay, so I added 3 dots of glycerin in here, and then I added a little bit more paint because I felt like the consistency was very different. This one is kind of thicker, and this one is a lot more liquid, which is kind of expected, but the difference was really noticeable. So I added a little bit more paint just, you know, to be sure I did not dilute it too much. I'm going to have to experiment a little bit with how much glycerin should I put in how much paint, because I have no idea. So let's go ahead with the swatching, and this is going to be my okay, I'm really trying not to dirty myself, and okay, like this is fine. So let's put this here and let's make grid. Lately I've been loving grids very, very much, so yeah. Pick a brush which brush? Who cares? Okay, water, because I came prepared this time. This time I was prepared. Ugh. If this unscrewed, I would be really prepared. Okay, there we go. Our brush. Okay, so I'm going to just do a swatch. I'm not going to do any washes, anything strange. I just want to see the difference between the two. Where is... No, not going to use you. I also come prepared with paper. I did my studying for this video. I swear I did. Okay, so since I have no idea, glycerin, I think it's water soluble, but I'm going to swatch first the one straight from the tube, so there is not going to be any mixing with like if I don't wash my brush well, which sometimes it happens, and that's something that does frustrate me, but what can you do? Okay, so straight from the pan or tube, whatever. Okay, so hello, very unpigmented paint. Okay, so there we go. Okay, the paper is a Canson XL mixed media paper, and it's the back sorry, of the paper sheet, and it's a cellulose paper, so I could probably do the same experiment with a cotton paper and expect different results. I have no idea, but I'm going to use this paper for all the swatches, so I have a baseline on which to confront them. Okay, so let's see the one with the glycerin, what happens. Okay, and the one is the one with the glycerin. Let's pick a little bit more. Okay, so let's see how they dry, but okay, so the feeling of the two, how did they feel like? They're not really that different. I mean, I expected this one to have a more smooth application, so for it to be easier to spread down on the paper, and they do not have any difference. I felt like they were the same. One thing I noticed is that it's much easier to pick up the paint from this one rather than this one. In this one it was much creamier, and I kind of had to stab the pan to get some paint on my brush. And then I do believe this one has a more even application in the swatch, and this one I had a bit more I don't know, it's kind of uneven. Maybe it's my problem because I went 2 times and spread the pigment from above, and so I have like more pigment on top and less on bottom. But and this one felt a little bit smoother. I have to say, at 0 time I probably would not be able to tell which one has the glycerin and which one hasn't. If like a person presented them to me and told me, hey, these are your paints, choose one, use it and tell me what's in it, I would not be able to tell this one has glycerin, sorry, this one has glycerin and this one hasn't. So I am, I don't know, hoping to see something different in the 24 and 48, mostly in the 48 hour mark, because I'm expecting this one to be dry and cracked already, because it happened with my palette. In 48 hours they were already dry, and I'm expecting this one to still have, I'm not saying a kind of reflecting or a reflecting feeling about it, but I'm expecting to be more wet and definitely easier to re-wet with a water spray. Okay, so this one is the first swatch, and we'll see each other tomorrow for the second swatch. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so this is 24 hours after pouring both paints and mixing the paint with glycerin. So first, some evaluation about the two swatches. They look basically the same. The only difference I can feel is that this one is a lot smoother and this one is grainier. It's a bit like the texture you can feel from the pans, because I am the idiot that touches her pans, but they're fairly dry, so it's fine. This one, as you can see, okay, focus. Alright, this one is the one without the glycerin, and as you can see, the volume reduced and it cracked in the middle. And the feel when you touch it is a bit like touching a wall, not with wallpaper of course, but a wall. You touch it and you get that kind of grainy feeling of sorts. That's the feel you get when you touch this and the swatch. With the one with the glycerin, and it's this one, as you can see, it has started to shrink a little bit as well as having some empty bubbles or empty pockets of air. I don't know how to call them, but you can see it's shinier, and when you touch it, it has a sort of waxy consistency. It's not the same consistency, and right now you can tell the difference between the two pans, and but you cannot tell the difference between the two swatches, not even if you touch them. So let's go ahead and swatch the ones for the 24-hour mark. I am going to use my trusted water bottle, and I'm going to spritz both pans just once, which is what I will be doing also tomorrow. And for the longer hour mark, I will always use one spritz and see what happens. No idea. Let's try. Okay, so this one is going to be the 48-hour swatch. I want to show you the two pans close to each other, and there we go. The one without glycerin is dry, and it's the crack is getting bigger, but the one with the glycerin is staying pretty much even, though it's starting to shrink a little bit on this end, and the feeling of waxiness is kind of the same, and touching wise they do feel a lot like white nights. If I had to touch all of my paints and give you a comparison, this one is a lot like the white nights. Okay, so the previous swatches for the 24-hour, one of the things I noticed is that the one with the glycerin re-wet more easily than the one without, and the amount of pigment I was able to pick up was bigger with the glycerin. So either the tube, the one without the glycerin, needs more water for it to, I don't know, re-wet, or it probably needs more time for the water to be absorbed and for the paint to get less dry, to get the same amount of pigment. But still, I'm always going to swatch them in the same way, so just one spritz water. This one is going to be the one without glycerin, and this one is going to be the one with Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so 2 weeks later, they've mostly settled, and you can see this is the one without glycerin, this is the one with glycerin. The one without is still cracked. The cracks have worsened though, and still dry, still chalky. This one, I'm not going to touch it because I've been dirtying my fingers for quite a lot, especially when I touch the borders, so it's still kind of wet, and it has kind of shrunk a little bit on this hand, but not really a problem. And so in the previous one, you can see that it was pretty more easy to reactivate the color with the glycerin, and the color is slightly more intense. Now we will see the 2 weeks difference, and let's write this, 2 weeks, there we go. Okay, so same thing as the other ones. I'm going to spritz them with water, just one spritz, and then we will see what happens. I'm not really expecting any difference between the 48 and the 2 weeks swatches, but who knows? Okay, so this is the one spritz. Where's my paper? Here. Okay, so let's go with the just a tube. No. Okay, there we go. Okay, so it gets wimpier and wimpier as we go. Let me just be more violent. Okay, more violent is better. I will need to be more violent with the glycerin one as well. Okay, let's go with violent then. Not much violence, I have to admit, but woo! Yeah, color difference is definitely noticeable. Okay, so yeah, there are particles in here, mostly because I forgot about them and left them in open air, so this is dust. If you don't want your watercolors to release dust on your paints, maybe you should close the tin or put them away. So learn from my mistakes, do not leave them out. But I think the difference is quite noticeable in the 2 weeks mark, and so basically final results of this experiment. I think that there is not much difference when you squeeze them out. Tube reactivates well, glycerin reactivates well, because they're both wet, so it's kind of obvious. The difference starts about when they start drying, that you do need to either insist more without glycerin to reactivate it, but as you can see, even if I was pretty harsh on my pans, if I use the same harshness without glycerin and with glycerin, you can see that the one with glycerin reactivates much better. So yeah, basically you can see the difference between the two. It's not that noticeable, I have to admit. In the 48 hours I can see it because I'm pretty close, but let me tell you also the feel of putting my brush to the pan. It's much better with the one with glycerin. So yes, I have to say that glycerin is magical unicorn tears. But no, seriously, for example, some of my paints, like my Daniel Smith, I've never tried to use glycerin, but they have such vibrant colors that I don't think I would need to. Also, they do look a little bit more wet, like, I don't know, my Magellos, like my Shinhans, they still look wet after a lot of time. So I don't think the reactivation would be better with glycerin, or that much better. But if you are dealing with very, very dry paints, I'm thinking this one, the Royal and Langnickel, and I'm also thinking, but I threw them away, so not going to be able to make the try, I'm afraid. My Maurice watercolors, if you remember the first impression video I did for them, if you have not seen that video, I will link it in the cards up here. Those were a fail. The dry ones were so dry and they could not be reactivated at all. So maybe using glycerin with them is kind of what saves your life if you have only those watercolors. But yeah, this is something I'm definitely going to use for my cheaper paints, and for my most expensive paints I'm just going to leave them like they are, no need to add any kind of stuff, unless they do dry, and so I will add one drop just to have that shiny look even after squeezing them out. Okay, so this is the end of the video. I'm sorry for its length. I think it's going to be very, very long, so I'm probably going to make like a shortened version, and just you know, if you want the too long didn't read version of a video. Okay, thank you for being with me, and we'll see each other next time. Bye.